All righty. Well, I'm going to invite Dallas and Ashley to come up and join me here on the platform. Dallas, you can just use your head mic, and then Ashley has a microphone right here for her. And look forward to us just getting to talk with you guys a little bit more this morning. And so, of course, many of you know of the Browns, and many of you maybe were even in other churches at one point, 8-9 years ago, when they came through Western Kansas and raised some support. And Dallas, I'm going to put a picture, I got a picture of your family up. They're here on an extended date night without their kids. And Dallas will explain that a little bit. I actually want to talk a little bit about some of the culture stuff we were talking about with the kids. I think that would be good for our church family to kind of be more aware of that. But I got at least the best recent family picture I could find. So Dallas, why don't you talk a little bit about your kiddos, introduce them to us, and tell us a little bit about what they're up to this weekend and this year.
Absolutely. Well, first, just let me say thank you for having us.
Yeah.
And my children's name are Parker and Eden. So Parker's 7, Eden is 5, and they were actually both born there in Burkina Faso. For those of you that would have met us when we came through last time, we didn't have any children at the time. You might remember that. And so when we arrived, my son was born a few months later. And so they just grew up there. So one of the things that we wanted to do to make sure that they were doing well in school and everything is get them this year where they're just growing up in English. So being born over there, they just grew up in multiple languages the whole time. We spoke English at home, but everywhere outside of the house, they're at least hearing one of 2 different languages. They even went to like kindergarten and stuff in French or in another tribal language. And so they just grew up. So my son and my daughter both, when they're in school, are probably just a little bit behind in their actual English, just because it's kind of, I'd say it's still their first language, but at least it's competing with some others. And so both of them do speak French, and I wouldn't say they speak Moray very well, but they understand it and can speak a little bit when they're around other kids. So they're growing up in those different things. So long story short to say, we thought it would be really good for them, and they had the opportunity of our sending church in Georgia has a Christian school, and we really wanted them to focus on school this year. So with all our traveling, we just kind of made the decision that we're not going to take them with us anywhere that might take them out of school. And so coming here would just far enough away, they'd have to miss at least a day of school, and so we left them behind with family. And that works out well too, because the grandparents are obviously anxious and eager to spend any time they can with them, since for the last 7 years they've been over there in Africa. So
yeah, and so we've talked a lot, church, about being, and I know many of you are sympathetic and caring about this dynamic, but when families go overseas to the mission field, you can't get to Burkina Faso even in one day of international travel. It really takes 2 full days to get over there, and so that limits a lot of family time. But also, many of you would probably remember when Dallas and Ashley were raising support, they didn't have kids. They had both their children on the field. And Ashley, you were sharing before the service some of like the things that have shocked your kids about America, some of the things that they've noticed. I think this would give our church a better understanding of why it's good that you guys are giving your kids some time in America. You have a heart, I think, to be immersed in the culture there in Burkina, but also I think you want them to grow up with some American senses. And so talk a little bit about that.
So eventually the goal would be, whenever our kids are old enough, to send them to college, or hopefully a Christian college in the U.S. But in order to do that, we can't just, all right, you're 18, go to college. They have to have some sort of American culture first, because it is so different. And because they were born there, they really haven't been in the U.S. for the last 7 years. And so whenever we come back, even the concept of, I was telling your pastor, a Chick-fil-A drive-through is very foreign to them, where you go around the building and you order, and then you get to get your food at the window, and then you eat in the car. They think that is just the craziest thing, because in Burkina, you sit around a big bowl of rice and you eat with your hands. and you're definitely not eating in the car.
Yeah.
And so that is just very wild to them. Carpet, we have no carpet at all. It's all tile floors because Burkina borders the Sahara Desert. It's very dusty, so no one has carpet. And they love carpet. Carpet is very
It's
cool.
hard to explain how dusty it is, but it's
Yeah,
really,
so at night,
hard to
I will
explain.
mop the floors, and then whenever I wake up in the morning, you can see the dust on the floor. They need to be mopped again. So we're
Wow.
a 2 times a day mopping the floor household.
I feel like the only thing that Kansas sort of experienced close to that is maybe some of the Dust Bowl days. Some of the stories I've heard about that.
I'm sure that's
but I think
probably
that's
exactly,
barely coming close to that what you're talking about.
probably exactly what it's like.
Yeah.
Even when they, in school, when they speak English, it's still like some French stuff comes out, or like an inversion of their sentence structure. Even though they're saying it in English, it's not correct. And so just to have kids that are able to function without us one day in the United States and be able to be functioning adults and go to college, they need a little bit of time in the U.S. to get a little bit of
Yeah.
that culture.
Yeah, and I think, Shelby and I have interacted with kids who've grown up on the mission field at Bible college and stuff, and I think it really is wise of you guys to invest in that long term because you want your kids to be able to build a life in America and feel adjusted and not feel like completely foreigners when they get a choice of where they live after they grow up. Dallas, I want you to talk about, because some of I'd say about half the families in the room have never met you guys. Half of them have. Burkina Faso is probably not a country in Africa we're as well acquainted with. So kind of just give us, try and get us in our minds kind of adjusted to what that's like, what Burkina Faso is like in its culture, its lifestyle, and some of the other things, religion, all of that.
So, starting culturally and climate, we're right there on the Sahara Desert, and so it is probably, in a lot of ways, when you think about primitive Africa, that's probably what much of the country looks like, where many of the people are going to live in the mud brick homes and a straw roof, where they're farming every day for their family. Now, they do have some major cities, so it's not exclusively that. The capital city is a city of 3 or 4 million people. So, they do have some major cities there. But the major cities as well are going to look very primitive in the sense that they're just not, in every sense of the way, modern in the way we might think. So, but it is changing so quickly. One of the things about Burkina is you have the super wealthy class that are there. And so you see stuff that's extremely wealthy. It's just there's almost no middle class. It's like you have both ends of the extreme. So you sometimes do see there's like an appliance store that looks just sort of out of, it just looks like it should be in the country. Well, it's catering to this super wealthy that do live there in Burkina Faso. And then you have, just like a boutique that's just in the middle of nowhere and all those things. So you kind of have both extremes there. There's just not much actual middle class. And that's one of the things you'll see. So a lot of times when I describe the country is I explain how poor it is and how that, but you visit the city, I mean, it's a massive city. So they're going to have, I think they have 13, 14 stories as their tallest building. And, they have an airport and things like that. So culturally, one of the things that had the biggest effect on them was that they were colonized by France. And so there's a lot of French culture that you might see. Just as a small example of that, everybody's going to eat bread every day for breakfast. There's like a French bakery that makes the long, skinny bread called a baguette. That's what almost everybody would eat for breakfast every day in any city. In the villages, even there, they're going to have bread they would break, and they take corrugated roofing and lay it on the open fire and bake the bread over the fire in the corrugated roofing. But still, it wouldn't be quite as common in the villages as it is in the city. So they do have 66 different tribes, so 6 different languages. So all of their schools are set up in French because all of their curriculum, they just borrow from France and stuff. And it's hard for them to nationalize languages because they end up excluding other tribes. So French works as the unifying language. So again, in the cities, you'll see a lot more French, and as you get to the villages, everybody's going to speak their individual tribal language. But every village you go to, or every area at least, is going to have their own. And so that makes it a little more challenging when you talk about traveling in different areas. But French helps you kind of get around all the major places. So the biggest other thing there is the religion, what that has affected. So they're a predominantly Muslim country. 65% probably of the country is Muslim, and that dominates there. There's some Catholics. There are some quote-unquote Christians, which would be very charismatic and very prosperity gospel, work-based salvation. And so as far as true gospel preaching churches, there's almost none as far as a percentage point of the country. And then the animism. So one of the things that you'll see if you were to look online, it would probably tell you that it's like 65% Muslim and 25% Christian or something like that, and that would be majority Catholic and this and that, but it's 100% animist. And so all the country, almost everyone in the country is very comfortable mixing the idols that they have that they worship with whether it be Islam or Catholicism or whatever, and that's very common. And then there's a few people that would have exclusively animistic beliefs where they would not participate with the Catholic Church or Islam at all. But that has a very profound effect on the country because of what that ends up looking like. And so any country where you have a lot of idol worship, the demeanor of people that are in that is very different. So those are the main things that kind of, I think, situate what Burkina looks like.
Now, you guys, is the name of the town, and I may mispronounce it, Zangase? Is that
Yes.
the town you're in predominantly? Is that a bigger town, or is that more of a rural area?
So the capital city is Ouagadougou.
Okay.
And so we would be on sort of the outside, just outside sort of the perimeter of that capital city.
Okay.
So it is a village that the city is closely approaching because of the massive amounts of people. And so we don't have any paved roads or anything like that, but we're not far away from those things.
And then your second plant, is that in another area? Describe where that's at.
Sure.
In
So
proximity.
that's another hour, an hour and a half outside of town.
I'm looking on Google Maps. You are more than welcome to do the same, y'all.
Sure.
Ouagadougou.
Is
Is that how you say it?
That's it. That's actually really accurate. Yeah.
Well,
Ouagadougou.
that
if you
just sounds
look at
fun to
Ouagadougou,
say.
You can
Pardon
look up
my
Zangase and
immaturity.
Kombisiri, and you should be able to get the general areas of it. And if you look it up on Google Maps and you do the satellite view, you can actually see the picture of our church. My car parked right there.
No, right? That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's cool. So, but I was looking it up. But Burkina is also, because is that the town that where your other church plant is, or
The other was Kombisiri.
okay? And that's another type of suburb type thing. I don't know if suburb is the right term.
Here,
It's
I
not.
can show you.
It's not middle class. So I don't know if suburb's the right term. But
Let's see.
so you're south there, the big city.
Yeah, our church is, I can't show you on the satellite. This is just for you because nobody else
Yeah,
can see
I know. I
this.
feel bad.
That's okay. I can talk at the same time.
So it would be a lot more primitive living, Ashley. Like, describe maybe the difference between city life and then kind of the area God's placed you guys in.
Sure. So where we live is inside the city. We would like to live more outside of the city, but for safety reasons at this time in Burkina Faso, we cannot. The city, you can have a multi-million-dollar home, and then they walk outside of their house, and right next to their house are just mud brick homes with a dirt floor, and it's very mixed. And then once you get farther out of the city, it's all dirt roads, like big squatter towns where nobody's actually laid out the land correctly at all, and all the houses are stacked on top of each other. You can't get through with a car. And then once you get a little farther out past that, the homes are a little more spread out. They have a little bit more farmland. But again, it's still going to probably be a brick home with either concrete flooring or dirt floor. And our first church plant is more so in that area of where half of it is more squatter town and the other half is still a little bit more farmland. And then the second church plant is about an hour farther out from that, and it's a very new church plant, but those houses are very spread out. but it is growing very quickly. And so by the time we're back, our church property will probably be surrounded by houses or mud brick huts or whatever
Oh, wow.
they're
Yeah,
able to.
that's really quick.
It's growing crazy fast. So.
Where's all the growth coming from?
There's population explosion. So
Oh, okay. Just kids
averaging-
and stuff, basically.
they're doing a lot better job at keeping people alive. Malaria kills 1 out of 4 children, 1 out of 5 children before.
How many times have you guys had malaria? I feel like I've read that a few times.
I have only had malaria twice, and each time I have, I had it once in Burkina and once just from pure
She got it
exhaustion
and
of
brought it
flying back from to America from Burkina. And our first year on the field, he had it once every single month. So
Oh, my
a
soul.
week out of every month, he was out of commission. Like,
Wow.
just could not get out of bed.
20.
Just very
I've had
sick.
20-something times. She's
Yeah.
had it twice.
Wow. Wow. So, Dallas, catch us up to speed. You came by our church 8-9 years ago, raised support, arrived on the field in 2018. In about 4 paragraphs, just give me the logistics. Churches planted, when those are planted, about how many people you see coming, and then we'll get into more of the details of the ways God has changed people's lives there.
Okay. So 2018, we arrived. We started language school. We worked alongside a veteran missionary. So that first 3 years actually would have been language school and just kind of getting a solid footing in the country. From there, we started our first church plant, and that would have been 3 years in, so just over 4 years ago. And the first plant is Zanga de Saint, and God blessed that church plant. This morning, I think I got the report a little bit ago. They're 5 hours ahead of us here. So they had 86 people at church this morning.
That's awesome.
Our second church plant, we started last year in August, and it's really slow in the beginning, and I'll talk about that later. So there, I think they had 3 people.
Yeah.
And so
And I assume when you're gone, is it someone you've trained in your first church plant that's kind of out there at the second one, or is it someone local at the second area that's
yes,
running
so
that?
we have a team that leaves the first church plant and goes to the second.
Okay, so
to work
the
it.
times are staggered enough where
so
they
that
just
3
travel.
people doesn't include them.
Yeah.
I just to give you
Yeah,
idea,
that makes
people
sense.
actually reaching the city. So
Yeah.
they go out every week, and it depends on how many people go. There's a man and his wife that are kind of the responsible for that ministry, and they always bring 3 or 4 or 5 people with them
Yeah.
when they go out.
So you were talking about how it's slow at the start. Give us a sense of some of the factors, that cultural or spiritual opposition that makes that the case. Because we want to be able to intelligently pray for that second church plant because in every prayer letter it comes up, and so.
So when we first started our first church plant, I think I'll just tell you that story really quickly, and that'll show you sort of what the same thing that's going on with the second. The very first event that we held, we had tons of people show up just sort of out of curiosity, and I was very excited. Over 120, we were thrilled. But obviously, they are a Muslim community, and they have witch doctors there in that community and imams. And so very quickly, the imam and the witch doctor warned and threatened everyone not to spend time with us and not to come. And so the second time we had a service, we had one person come, one adult, and then some kids that were just passing by, and little kids, all under 5, that would just kind of walk by and stare for a little and walk on, and then it went down from there. There were plenty of services where no one showed up or things, and so that witch doctor spent a good deal of time spreading rumors about us, scaring people. He told people that I ate a child. He told people that I was killing people. They told people that I was trying to round people up to sell them, all sorts of things like that. So there was a lot of sort of suspicious.
Are you the only white guy in the area?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I figured. Yeah.
So and there's just sort of a natural suspicion and
course.
curiosity that comes along with that.
Of course, yeah.
So the imam was a little less direct in some of that, but he was very, very confrontational with people in the community. So he would never necessarily come and threaten me, but he threatened people in the community all the time. And so we'd have somebody that come and they'd show up, they'd be very excited, and then they'd come 2 or 3 times, and then we would see them and we'd go visit them, and they would be like just terrified. like, you can't be here. They're going to see you. He's going to come back. And so, and they would, particularly women, they would beat the women if a Muslim woman came, and the kids. And so there was a lot of that in the beginning. Anyone that showed up to church was going to really get it from everyone in the community.
Wow.
So that it makes it's very slow. People are curious, but not necessarily willing to face the level of persecution they would have to actually come to our church.
Is that happening in the second village as well? Kind
It
of the same dynamics?
It is.
Yeah.
So it's the witch doctor over there as well.
Tell the story of your yard and the witch doctor. And he cursed you guys or something like that?
He, every Sunday morning for a couple weeks, we would pull up to our church, and there would be like a sacrificed goat or a chicken or something on our church property, and Dallas would just clean it up and scoot it off to the side, because if other people saw it that actually believed in the animism, they would be terrified and they wouldn't come to our church.
Yeah. Anything to add to that?
They have these clay pots that they use, and then they take the clay pot and they put different items in it, and it's kind of exactly what you would think when you think like a witch doctor. And
Feathers,
so it's like
eggshells,
feathers,
sticks.
eggshells, different
Just
bark,
weird
the left foot
items,
of a black
basically.
chicken, stuff like that. And so the random items they put all in there,
Oh my
and they
soul.
boil it, and then they'll put it on your land. And different things mean different stuff and all that. And everyone there would be terrified. They would never approach or touch something like that. And so I just scoop it up and off. And I was told over and over that if I ever dared to touch one of those pots, that I would die. And so I was like, oh, I touched it this morning, threw it away.
Yeah.
And so that witch doctor died, actually.
Huh.
And so he was very direct in his threats and things. And the new guy that came in, he's the nicest guy in the world. He really is. He's nothing like the old guy. You drive by his house, he's always comes running out of his door, waving with two hands. Hey, pastor, how are you doing? Yeah. It's like, yeah,
Interesting.
you going to come to church? He's like, yeah, I'll be right there.
Yeah.
He-
More strategy of accommodation
Sure,
than
he's
opposition.
very, very friendly, but, he'll be sitting there sacrificing a goat when you go by. He's like, hey, splitting blood around or something. And
Wow.
it's just such a different personality than the first guy. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Man, that's fascinating.
but briefly, the way we overcame that is just, I spent those first 2 years, every single day, the whole day there in the community, which is sort of the belief that is, time sort of reveals the truth of things. And so obviously people would see me and they're like, oh, that's the guy that's eating kids. But, I'm there every single day. Over time, they're just like, okay, that's not true.
Yeah. Yeah.
And slowly people became, I think it was about 8 months before the first person came and made a profession of faith. And,
Wow.
and it just sort of snowballed from there.
You would start our services over and over and over.
Yeah, my rule was, whether there's anybody there or not, we do church, and we do it just like
For your family, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, all right, Ashley, stand up. We're going to sing. And she's like, I'm not standing up. Ashley,
Can you
come on.
imagine church?
It's
Like,
song service. Come
all
on,
right,
let's
it's time
go.
for church. All
And
three
she's
of us.
like, no, I'm not standing up. And I'm like, all right, fine. I'm going to lead the scene, though. And she'd just sit there and stare at me. And then I'd preach a message just like there was everybody there. And she's like, what are you doing? And we get all done. And then many times, this is where she'd get upset. There would be somebody that's like showing up at invitation time. And I'm like, hey, we're going to start over. And she's just like, no.
I never got upset whenever we started over for one visitor. I got upset whenever it was one Sunday morning and we're on our third start over session.
Yeah.
Because in perspective, there is no fast food. There is nowhere to just like go buy lunch that's not going to make you sick. Every Sunday I still have to go home and make lunch, and we have 2 kids. And so
Takes a lot more time. Yeah.
they're crying that they're hungry, and we've been at church now for going on 3 or 4 hours. And it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and the next service starts in the next hour and a half. And I'm like, I guess we're not eating lunch today, honey. Take it away.
Yeah.
Let's go. Round 4.
Yeah. So I think that's important to highlight. Like, man, we rejoice in the strength in the stability that's coming to Victory Baptist, your first church plant. But the road there is paved with a lot of sacrifice, literally in some cases of goats and stuff.
There's a lot of bloodshed.
Yeah. Real quickly, Dallas, we preached through Acts several years ago, and as Paul is going in these places with paganism, God finds a way to show himself strong and to show himself as more powerful than the local gods.
Sure.
What do you think? I mean, I'm not expecting that maybe there will always be miraculous stories. Maybe there are. But what are some of the ways that God has done that in these communities to say, kind of like Dagon, right? Face on the ground. What are some things God has done to show his power to these people?
We've had a lot of people that are very deeply involved with that have come, and most of the, I guess, the testimony they have would be of that personal nature of somebody that's come. In the beginning, when we had a few people come to the church that had gotten saved or at least made professions of faith, the exclusivity of the gospel was really new, and that was not something like if you had decided to be a Muslim, you were never challenged to be exclusive to that. If
you could still be pagan.
You could still be pagan.
Yeah.
And the same with
what about Catholic?
Yeah.
Yep.
So you can be now. Obviously, this might not be true for every country, but in that context, it was very understood, common, and accepted, including with the clergy, to still be pagan and really involved in that, and be Catholic or be Muslim.
Get along.
Sure, they all sort of mesh just fine. And so when people started coming up to church, I was like, hey, yeah, we don't do that. That was a very new thing. And so when you read 1 Corinthians and you read people like arguing about how they're better than others because they got baptized by different people, or the struggles over the things offered to idols and all that, I mean, that was a very literal what was happening in our church every week.
Yeah, we've been preaching through Revelation on Sunday mornings, and the idolatry that John is trying to address there. I was thinking of that as you're talking.
Sure.
Yeah. So God's done so much, but I think what would be super edifying, and maybe we'll have time for questions after this. Ashley, I'll let you start. Just talk about some of the stories of lives changed. People who you're like, man, this is why I came to Burkina Faso.
For me, whenever we first started our church plant and we had quite a few months where no one was coming, we were finally at a point, probably about 10 months into our church plant, of where we finally had a good group of people coming. And all of the young girls that were coming to our church, I don't know what was going on, but all of them were in prostitution. And little by little, they all started quitting their prostitution jobs, looking for other jobs. We're getting really faithful in church. My husband and I were able to help lead a lot of them to the Lord. They got saved. And the change in their lives that you saw just from living in pure darkness, where some of their fathers even told them, if you're not going to be a prostitute and you're not going to bring money home for our family, get out of my house. And I could never imagine a father saying that to their child. To them, just know if they had to sleep outside in the dirt, they were not going to do that anymore. They were going to come to church. They were meeting me for discipleship meetings, going through the Bible, going through our discipleship book, serving in the church. And 4 of those girls, while I am gone, they are teaching children's church this Sunday morning. Wow. And they've had a lot of obstacles that they've had to overcome, and extremely hard lives, and they are extremely faithful.
Amen. Praise God. Give us some folks that stick out to you.
Sure. Right before we left, we visited all of the families in our church at their home, and sitting down with all of them and talking to them, that was one of the things that when Ash and I got back in the car and we started going home, that we said is that, I don't know what the church is going to look like when we get back. This is a trying time in the sense that they're going to have to really stand up on their own, but that's just part of the church plant process. They're going to have to learn to be independent. But even if the church is not in the condition that we hope it is when we get back, what we've done is not in vain, because there are some families whose lives have been changed. And so one of them, Emil, he's a man that came to our church first. He was Muslim. He had gone to the imam for some problems that he had, debt and other things. And he had gone to the witch doctor. He had paid. You have to pay for every sort of spiritual advice, whether that's from the imam or the quote-unquote Christians or whatever. And he went to the charismatic church. There's a big faith healer in our community there at Zingasan. It's actually right next door to us. Just his church is basically butted up to ours. And he has a big banner with a picture of him photoshopped next to Vladimir Putin. I don't know why. And he charges $10 for a prayer request and $20 if it's kind of a serious prayer request. And so he holds services 4 or 5 days a week from about 7 a.m. Until about 9 o'clock at night. And during that service, they're singing and sort of chanting a lot. But really it's just sort of encouraging people to come with their prayer requests. And at any point anybody has a prayer request, he'll take them into the room. And he's got a room. It's a separate building, probably like 5 foot by 5 foot. There's 2 chairs, and that's all there's room for. And then it's black ceiling, black walls, and a black curtain that goes over the door, and he shuts it in there and he prays for them and takes their money. And he's not a believer. He's not a Christian. He's a very wicked man. He can't read, so he doesn't use the Bible. And he's not shy about that. So he had gone, this guy's name is Isaac, and Emil had gone to Isaac. He had paid to try to get his help, didn't get help. He had been to the witch doctor, didn't get help, and he went back to Isaac and was in one of the services, and he complained about how he had paid all that money and didn't get any help. And Isaac kicked him out of the church, basically kicked him out of the service and told him that he needed to come talk to me. He said, they don't charge for prayer over there, which is an insult over there in the way that
as in it's cheap goods,
exactly.
You know?
It's
that's the cheap prayer request church.
There's a restaurant that just opened. They don't actually charge. You're like, I wonder what kind of food they serve, you know? That really is exactly, they insult us with that. Is basically, you get what you pay for. And if they could actually pray, they would be charging for it. And the more you charge kind of shows you basically the quality you're getting. And that's really the way everybody looks at it. So he comes and talks to me, and he spends the next 2 hours explaining the problems he has. And I mean, overwhelming stuff in so many different details of his life. And I was just overwhelmed listening to him. And he gets done, and he's like, what should I do? Can you help me? And I said, buddy, that's terrible, and that's not even your worst problem. You have worse problems than that? You've got a problem with God because you're a sinner. And cause I didn't know what else to do. Share the gospel with him. And he thanked me, and I prayed with him, and he came back to church that Sunday. And so he continued to come to church every week. Never said anything. He's a pretty quiet man, but it was already unique to have a Muslim man coming to our church.
Yeah. And he brought his wife, which was very unheard of.
Never done. So after that, and talking to him and all that, I spent months going to his house. He was there at church every week. He never really said anything. I was preaching. This was back really in the early days where sometimes it was like him and his family, that was it. Sometimes it was just like one other person. And so in a lot of ways, even when I was standing preaching, I felt like I'm just preaching for him. And I'm praying that God would work in his heart, but because he kept coming, but he didn't say anything. And I'd ask him, I was like, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about the gospel? What do you think you're going to trust Christ? And never said anything. He would just say, thank you. And I went to his house, spent hours with him at his home. But after about 4 or 5 months, he came to me and he told me after a Sunday morning service that he was ready to trust Christ. And of course, I was very excited. I asked him why now? What kind of happened? What changed? What was the deciding factor? And he explained to me what had been happening to him in the last 4 or 5 months that I just had no idea. Being a Muslim, he started telling his family and friends that he was going to give his life to Jesus. He tried to witness to them too, but he was facing just some very intense persecution. His family came and they burned his house down. They killed all of his livestock. He was a farmer. That was his whole livelihood. They killed all of his chickens. He has a barrel of water that was his drinking water, and they poisoned it. They tried to take his children away from him, basically just saying he was an unfit parent. Just so many things that he was facing. He had friends turn on him, spit in his face, yell at him, and he said that it was hard for him, and the reason why it took him 5 months is because he said that it just took him a while to finish telling everyone he needed to tell that he was going to give his life to Christ but he's told everybody, he's told his friends, he's told his family, he told everybody at his mosque, and now he's ready to give his life to Christ, and he did.
Wow.
And him and his wife are just some of the sweetest people in the world at our church, so faithful, the servants. They constantly are coming and explain to me how they're praying for so-and-so to be saved, and they visited this family, and just, it's
Very
amazing.
specific prayer request of what they're praying and how they pray for us and our family is just amazing.
They are struggling to survive in some ways and provide themselves, and we're sick or something like that, and they're there at the hospital, or there with our family and anything, and so and that's one that sticks out in my mind.
Yeah, wow. What an amazing story. I think of that verse of whom the world was not worthy, and what a privilege it is to minister to people who pay such a huge price to receive Christ. Church, I wonder if you guys have any questions for the Browns just about their culture or their ministry. Have there been any other questions that you guys would have?
Yeah, great question. When I was in Bible college, I was praying about that, what God would have me to do and where I'd serve him. And, seemingly by chance, but obviously looking back on it, you can see the providence of God in that. I had called to do an internship in different countries. I had called friends that I had in Asia, in South Africa, and many other places, looking to do an internship. And for one reason or another, I wasn't going to be able to visit them. They had problems or obstacles that said it's just not a good time, you can't come. And so I had a few months free. I wanted to go and visit somewhere as I continued to pray. And so I actually went to the book that like our church has with the prayer cards and stuff in it of the missionaries our church supported. And I was like, man, I got to figure out somewhere to go, because everywhere I plan, not because of me, but because of the missionary, the plans all fall through. Something happened, and I had this time free, but I wouldn't necessarily later. And I found a guy that I had just met once, and he was there in Burkina Faso. And I sent him a message saying, hey, I know you don't know me. You visited our church once. I didn't meet you. Is it okay if I come move to your country for a few months? And he was like, sure. And so, as strange of a request that is, I guess that's normal for us missionaries. I would just do that. And it was really during my time there where I just never seen anything like it. And I knew that I wanted to go to Africa from that point. And during that time, again, it just before the end of it, God really just sort of honed that down. That's where he'd have me serve.
Yeah, great question, Ben. Before we end, and we're going to give you guys time to be back at the table, would love for you, church family, to go reintroduce yourselves, introduce yourselves, ask more questions. Same thing after service. They're here with us just this morning, because we want to help them increase their support. They've got a bigger family, and so we contacted our friends down Liberal, and I told Tyler, this is an amazing missionary. You need to support him. And so they're going to be down there tonight. But Ashley, and then maybe Dallas, you can add. We've got about 4 minutes. At the end of service today, we're going to pray over you guys, and we want to continue to pray for you. What are some ways we could be praying for you now and into the future? Ashley, I'll let you start.
For the time now that we're in the States, obviously just safety for traveling, but also that we could be a blessing to the churches that we're in. We would really like to see some young couples that would be willing to go and be missionaries on the foreign field, even if it's not Africa or Burkina Faso, that we could just maybe touch some people's lives and that they would feel called. And also for our kids as they're just in this transition period of trying to adapt to American culture. Yeah. And that next June, whenever it's time for us to leave and go back, that they will be willing, because America is very nice and shiny, and Burkina Faso is very opposite. And so I think a transition going back for them to no family, a lot harder lifestyle is going to be a little difficult for them, because now they're kind of old enough to understand the difference of that. And so their dad and I are called to that mission field, but them as children might not necessarily feel as called as we are. So maybe that God would just touch their hearts and that they would be willing and to be servants and
Yeah.
go back. They don't have a choice, but
Yeah.
that,
but
that transition would go a little well.
it makes
better.
everything better if they can see it. And kids have, even if they have Christ, which that's even another thing, I'm sure for your youngest at least, is that it's hard for kids, even if they have Christ, to understand the idea of sacrificing something tangible for something that's very intangible. We've seen that with our kids in the ministry. It's hard to explain to them why we don't live near family and things like that. Dallas, what are some other ways you would think of how we could pray for you now and into the future?
Sure. Pray for the ministry there in Burkina. Even this last week, we've been dealing with some stuff that's just, it's just Satan trying to destroy things. And pray that God would also use the time that I'm here to just give us a greater vision of what he would have us do when we get back. Pray that we would see souls saved and others that are called into the ministry. And so I think those are the main things. What she said there was to, this furlough, I didn't want it to just be a time of refreshment for our family, which is part of it. But I do want to use the time that we're here to minister to others. And almost every missionary that I've ever met, besides second-generation missionaries, which is probably the exception, they almost always felt called to missions because a missionary visited their church and used that time to speak to their hearts.
Yeah.
And I would like to make sure that I focus on this time as me doing a very important part of what I do as a missionary and ministering to churches as well. And then for our safety, Burkina is politically and very dangerous right now. ISIS and Boko Haram and Al-Qaeda have all set up shop there. And the government was overthrown twice while we were there. And it seems like the security situation continues to deteriorate in some ways. And so just pray that God would allow that door to stay open, because we don't know how long they'll still be friendly with the United States, because they've already started completely denying entry to all French passports.
Wow.
And that there's a possibility that could follow with ours. And as they continue to buddy up with Russia and with North Korea and China, which are their closest allies, just pray that God would allow that door to stay open and we'd be able to continue to minister there.
Yeah, thank you so much. We're going to spend some time praying for you at the end of the morning service. And I encourage you, church, be praying about potentially visiting the Browns on the field. I certainly want to do that in the next few years if the Lord allows, and even be praying about the Lord's call on your life. I know many of the folks in here, it would not surprise me if the Lord would call some here to be involved in missions. And so I'm going to pray real briefly, but church, I want to encourage you to go visit the Browns. I'll dismiss you guys back to your table as we pray. And ask them all the questions. This is what this is for. Introduce yourself. Encourage them. Whatever the Lord lays on your heart, I think it'd be worth our time. Lord, thank you for Dallas and Ashley. And God, we are just so humbled by the way you've shown yourself strong on behalf of those who believe. Lord, thank you for these stories of prostitutes rescued from darkness, Muslims who've chosen to believe despite persecution. Lord, I'm really humbled and challenged by these believers in this far-off place, and challenged by our brother and sister, Dallas and Ashley. And I just pray, God, you would use them this morning to continue to strengthen and challenge our church. I pray, God, that our love and support for them would be expressed through prayers, through contact, through visiting, and through financial support. So I pray you'd use this morning's service to continue that work. And we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, church, why don't we thank them at least for talking to us about their field this morning. I'll dismiss you guys to your back table. And then don't forget, church, as they're heading back there, if you want to receive all of our prayer updates from all of our missionaries, you can sign up at the back table for that. I'll personally make sure all of our missionaries add you to their email list. I believe all of our missionaries have an email list. And you can sign up at the back table for that. Ladies, there's a ladies' night coming up in September for you to fellowship together at Escape the Clock, and you can sign up for that. There's no cost to that, and so I would encourage all of you ladies to participate in that as well. And I think that's everything. So, church, you can be dismissed. Be sure to get around, greet each other this morning, and we'll have service here in just a few moments.